Now, of course, the cool thing about deer hunting is there's something to do all year long if you're really into it. You know, if you're very passionate about it, there really is something that you can do every week of the year towards whitetail and towards finding success with hunting, with herd management, with habitat management. There's always something. I did leave out December this year. You know, for working in the deer woods, it seems like, you know, me myself, I get pretty burned out. And a lot of times what I'm doing in the whitetail woods is reflective of what I'm talking about, what I'm urging you to do. My first client trip, for example, is always the 10 days before Christmas. So that's where I'm going here pretty soon, in just a few days. And that's why you'll see a lot of this similar scene right here where we're shooting videos, because not only are we shooting videos right now and trying to cram in a lot before I go on trips in December and January. I might even go hunting in Kentucky for Diane in early January. But well, I won't be hunting for Diane in January. We're hunting with Diane. She's going deer hunting. I already shot one, so I can't wait to go on that trip. But there's a lot we need to get done, and most importantly, we're heading to the woods after this and going hunting. And you can't see it, but I'm sitting on a morel target right here. I always have it in the back of my truck, because if I have my bow and I'm hunting, I always try to find a way to get a few shots off before we go hunting, especially, or in between hunts, morning and evening, afternoon. January is an awesome time. Because if I call December the calm of the entire 365-day whitetail season, then the January is definitely the storm. And that's where a lot of things can happen, and a lot of strategy takes place in January. It takes place when it's fresh in your mind. And number one right here, the first thing that I urge you to do in January is scouting. Scouting doesn't do you a whole lot of good in March and April, when a lot of people traditionally scout February. When you're looking for sheds, for example, in March and late February, I want to see the sign that just happened in December, because a lot of times the December sign, we have a video on that, the best #1 time to scout whitetails. January scouting allows you to see what the deer have been doing in December. December is a sacred time because deer have been bumped into, have been really pushed into and pressured into very secure spots that relate to quality cover and quality food. And so a lot of times that's reflective of November. March is not reflective of November and October and what the whitetail world is doing at that time, what the deer are doing. April is not, February is not necessarily. And so really, as soon as you can scout in January, it's a great time to do so. Number two, I'm always scouting for this with my trail cameras or in person from a tree stand, but we're looking for survivors. And we're not just looking for, okay, this deer made it. That's great, we have him to hunt next year. What I want to know why he survived is because, maybe selfishly, I want to know that I know how to kill him next year, and I know how to hunt him. So what I'm seeing are those patterns. For one, if I'm seeing those patterns where that deer's at in November, December, guess what? If you maintain your property the same in the area you can hunt, the public land that you can hunt, he's going to do the same thing next year. There's a reason. And ask yourself why, not just he's here. The next step is, in that inventory and taking inventory, is where was he actually traveling? What was he using? What was defining his defining movements? How does that relate to current tree stands, future tree stands? We're looking at tree stands right now. I was with Dylan. We actually have a stand out in the woods that brought steps, different things. We have an extra family tradition up there, and I have a little handsaw. So when Dylan and I go up to hunt today, we're going to be looking at new tree stand locations based on what we've been seeing, what we're planning ahead. Everything's fresh in your mind right now. So it's a really important time, because in June, some of these little details might really leave you or not be impressed upon you as much as they should be. And finally, you know, we're taking inventory, making sure they're there. We're planning for the future. And then number three, make sure you ask yourself why. So he's here, he's making these movements. You plan on those movements, but you need to know why he was making those movements. Number three, was he making those movements because the neighbor had a standing cornfield? Did you have ag land on your property and the farmer left beans to not be harvested until January because the ground was wet? I've seen all these scenarios take place. Is your neighbor logging right now and making a lot of noise so that you're on your land during the daylight and they're going to be on their land after dark? And that could change in the coming years because they're not going to be logging every year. Really ask yourself why. Why are the deer there? What are they relating to for a food source? And it's not just, of course, first level is knowing they're there, but that's bottom level. That's the obvious one. Number two, what are their patterns? And number three, why are those patterns taking place? You have to ask yourself those 3 questions. You can't just take it on face value that he's alive and you're going to shoot him next year, and that's going to stay the same. Number 3, bedding work. This is a great time of the year to start knocking down some trees, and we have another top 5 ways to make bedding areas. But when it comes to timber, whether you're, and we'll just go over this briefly, whether you're knocking down mature canopy trees to allow sunlight into your woods, you're knocking down 1 tree every 30, 40, 50 yards to put side cover in the form of tops and log on the ground, and then allow sunlight to come in through different angles in your woods, that general overall woods where you want to hold deer to improve your holding capacity in a deer. Maybe you're completing hinge cuts in specific bedding areas, waist high hinge cuts, not high, head high. The head high hinge cuts are a waste of resources. You want side cover and regeneration in food. If that's not taking place at your hip level, the deer have virtually 0 benefit of it. Everyone shows the deer bedding under a trampoline in the summertime. Well, deer aren't looking for shade in November. Always think about that. So a great time to do some bedding area work. It's a great time to see where deer were approximately bedding during the hunting season. As we get into the end of January, February, March, deer are really starting to almost yard up, even if they don't have to, but they're getting pushed into areas of concentration, and you might find a lot of bedding activity that isn't really reflective of the hunting season. And again, that goes back to why you're doing this in the early season, and then getting into your bedding areas. You're not going to spook deer at all doing this. I know guys that have dirt bike tracks on their property. They do that all the way through June, July, August. You're managing for September, October, November, December. If your season goes into January, you figure out how you can do that too in January. The bottom line is you're not managing the deer herd to be on your land necessarily in February, March, April, May, June, July, August. A lot of the best properties, the deer are not on those properties from February to March, but they are on the property from September to December, and that's what makes a good deer property or not. A lot of times you can't have that perfect match of summer, spring, and then fall and winter and early winter. So a really good time to make sure you're paying attention to where those bedding areas are and how you can duplicate that, how you can make sure that bedding areas that are working on your property that you've worked on or that you find on public land, see how you can replicate that. And then bedding areas where you thought deer were bedding and they're not, there's no rubs there from the season, there's nothing going on. Think about where they are bedding and what the actual key is in your area to follow for bedding work. But a lot of that takes place, again, early to mid-January. Tree stand takedown. Taking down your tree stands is one of the ABCs of tree stand safety that hunter safety really likes to push out, and taking your stands down, wearing a safety harness, and then using a lifeline. If you do those 3 things, it's almost impossible for you to have a major accident in a tree stand, and that's a great gift to your loved ones. And that is a time to take down those stands as one of the ABCs, one of those 3 main importance for safety. Great time to do so, January, February, March, but especially before the growing season takes place and the trees expand. And I've done that before where I've left them out, and I've had a white pine that grows fast, put some diameter on, and 2 years later here I'm cutting out the straps, having to restrap everything, and it damages your stands, can bend them a little bit, and not good to do, especially we make investments in family tradition stands, which are incredible USA built steel stands. They can last a lifetime if you take care of them, and that's one of the main ways to take care of them, is taking them out of the woods. Number 5, premature shed hunting. Now, shed hunting, if you really value shed hunting, now I've been in the UP of Michigan where most of the deer lost at least 1 antler before New Year's, and that was because of harsh conditions and harsh habitat conditions, lack of food, and harsh weather conditions, and they burn that energy level, and the deer get into that mode. Then it's more of a mode of survival. Hanging onto their antlers is not a part of that survival process. And that's why you see in really good ag areas those bucks sometimes holding into early April, end of March. And so if the shed timing in your area is, you know, half the bucks are losing in mid-February, then I would wait till the end of February to look for sheds, or March. But let's think about this. Bottom line, with sheds, they're falling typically at a time that reflect winter behavior, not fall behavior. Just because you found an antler, again, that goes back to the lowest form of buck inventory, just tells you he's there. How does that relate to defining his actual October, November patterns, maybe early December? How does that relate towards the future and making plans and asking why is he there? And a lot of times when you ask why is that shed in that location, it has nothing to do with, not all the time, but a lot of times that has nothing to do with the hunting season. Number 6, entire habitat and hunting plan. This is a great time to plan. You can do so from the comfort of your home with aerial photos and charts and planning. That's why I developed the class, How to Design Your Whitetail Whitetail Parcel. It's done really well. Your hunting, your habitat. That's 18 videos. I believe it's about 11 hours long. You get a workbook, you get a hat with it, and we've had a strong number of sales all the way through since early July. You can imagine this Christmas time coming up, we're selling several a day, so they're doing really well. We're getting a lot of good feedback, and that can help you. But bottom line, whether you get the class or not, whether you buy any of my books, I try to give you, we should be up to 700 videos by the end of March, somewhere around there, and April, sometime in there, to help you out for free. So grab a piece of paper, some graph paper, some pencils, colored pencils, pens, ruler, whatever you want to do. This is the time to plan. And when you're doing that, you want to make sure that your habitat has a purpose. You're not just putting a food plot just because it was an open field. You want to make sure that food plot relates to bedding, that bedding relates to other bedding, that bedding relates and food plots relate to your access, that you can access around those areas. A property that's improved 80% is a bad property because you can't get in and out of the property without spooking deer, and that's the name of the game. A lot of times, most of the time, and I'm saying most of the time, 90% of the time, folks, habitat improvements are actually setting traps for themselves. So they build this great bedding area here, this great food plot here, and it might even been that they should have done the opposite in those locations. But bottom line, they're in areas where you're going to spook those deer that are in there when you access, when you get in and out of stands, and you're going to destroy a property. A lot of the most improved properties are the worst properties for hunting because they're so over improved that a hunter can't walk through the property without spooking deer. Becomes a nocturnal parcel, and 10 years later, that's why they have me come out, or 5 years later, because they're worse off than they were when they bought the property. That can happen on public land. The cool thing about public land, tens of thousands of acres, some of the areas I've hunted, and Pennsylvania, Ohio, UP, and Michigan. What's cool about that, if I did spook out an area, I don't see a bucks in a certain area, I just go to another area. Got tens of thousands of acres to play around with. So once you start making habitat improvements, you're trying to fit that on 500 acres, 100 acres, or 40 or 20. It becomes very critical that you do it right, and if you don't, your property is going to be worse off than before you made the improvements. So you have to make sure, just watch these videos and really try to help you out on that and find success. I don't hold anything back. And that leads to the next step, number 7, be very critical of yourself. Really pay attention. I hunted these dates, even mark them down, look on your trail camera for the week after that, those dates you hunted. Was there an adverse reaction by the deer herd? Don't look at it like, oh, the neighbors were hunting or something changed. Look at it like you had great trail camera pictures. You showed up and hunted Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday through the following Sunday, there's no deer on the land. Be very critical of yourself. Did you have enough cover and food in November and December? Did your food run out? Did your cover run out? Again, why? Ask yourself why. It's not enough to say, okay, the buck's alive and he's going to be here next year. These are the patterns. Ask why those patterns took place, good or bad. And if you're very critical of yourself, then you're going to be on the road to a lot more success. And the really cool thing about all of this in January, it seems so daunting. The season's a long ways away, but I'll tell you what, I was just looking forward to the season, it seems like a few days ago. Now all of a sudden we're in early December and I'm going on my first December trip, and Christmas is around the corner, and you think, I got lots of months to plan. It's January, end of December. Well, folks, it goes by quickly. But the cool thing is with all of this is that you can make changes right now that will completely change how you hunt and the level of success for your hunt and the quality of your hunt this fall. This is not something that takes years. If someone tells you this is a process that takes 5, 6, 7 years to take place, they don't know what they're doing. Because the lowest hole in the bucket about habitat and hunting management is how you hunt the land. So even if you don't lift a finger for habitat improvement, if you give those deer a sanctuary and it's 30 acres, 20 acres, it's amazing. If you hunt carefully, you hunt selectively, what you can accomplish with just 20, 30 acres. We're going out to 30 acres tonight. We've already shot 2 really nice bucks on this property this year. We shot 5 bucks on this property last year. Because we hunted in Minnesota, we spread out our buck kills a little bit, and we've refined it down to just our family hunting on this land. There's so much you can do in just one short season, because again, it boils down to how you hunt the land, Now is the time to be very critical of yourself, plan for the future, and incredible things could happen. Whether you're planning a public land hunt and you're planning more of a strategy around, a lot of people say, well, I only have one stand. And it might be that you have other priorities. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you're really into this stuff, find some good stand locations. Find some other properties to hunt that are close. I have people say, well, that's our family property. That's our farm. That's where we're going to hunt. But it stinks. We have poor access. Find another spot to hunt. I wouldn't ever settle. I've always looked at, I want to find a good place to hunt. If it's not a good place to hunt, why do I want to buy it, lease it, use it, waste my time on it? There's public land right around the corner. Just go have some fun on public land, find a new place to hunt. Always be planning. Don't wait till the last minute. Now's the time to do so. January is a great month. Again, December is a calm. January is a storm. Have fun in January and look forward to next year. Opening day is going to be here before we know it.
Now, as we transition into habitat season, I hope you've had a chance to check out my web class, How to Design Your Whitetail Parcel. It's on my website, whitetailhabitatsolutions.com. I have a link in the description, and I hope you can find it, check it out, and enjoy it this year.